International break has come and gone. But honestly, it was really just nice to take a break from FPL for a week or two, but I can't wait to get right back into it. I went from 300k to 90k last week, and I can't wait to see what Game Week 9 has in store. But not everyone is going to be off to this fantastic start like I am. I can't tell you how many seasons where I've been chasing rather than being chased, like more often than not. And so when I think about it, I feel like in order to connect with most of the audience, I just have to be 100% real, right? So one of my best friends, we both wildcarded at the same time, got rid of Erling Haaland and went for a Mo Salah style of draft. And what happened is I had more squad value. So I went for Trent and he had less squad value. He went for Robertson. And of course, Robertson goes out there during international break, dislocates his shoulder, and now Robertson's picked up an injury. He's likely going to be out for at least a couple weeks. And it's just so unlucky because like my bro is actually last in our mini league and he feels like, everything he's done, he's just made good decisions, but it just hasn't come his way and he's just been getting unlucky. And he just thinks that I'm like the luckiest guy in the world. There is that factor to play into it, but I just wanted to dedicate this whole segment to him. This is the overall rank of the person that won FPL last season. His name is FPL Guns on Twitter, Ali. And you can see that from Game Week 1 to Game Week 29 last season, you can see where he climbed the ranks. And even towards the Game Week 7 mark, he was at the 1 million mark. So if he can go from 1 million and win FPL, why can't you? Even if you're sitting at, 2 million, 3 million, or 4 million, you genuinely have a shot to go win FPL. All you have to do is just understand where you are and just try to make the best of the situation that you're in and week out and try to get a green arrow. And it's just one of those things where you just have to think positive and hope for the best, because if you start to embrace that negativity, sometimes it'll just take you down the wrong path. So this segment is just for you, call it, and hopefully you end up turning your season around, but not good enough to beat me in my mini league, And moving forward to how my wildcard did last week. Again, I mentioned this earlier, but I got 66 points, a green arrow from 300k to 80k. I'm so thankful. Thank you so much, Mo Salah. You genuinely saved my wildcard. Now, if you're interested to understand why I made the picks that I did, how the defense rotates, how the midfield rotates, and people that I'm looking to target in future weeks, just refer to my video that I posted last week. I went into an in-depth analysis about it, and I don't want to spend too much time going on that here. I think today what I really want to focus on is genuinely about captaincy. Now, to me, I look at my squad as a whole and I compare it to people that have Erling Haaland in their team, or maybe even have a draft of Haaland plus Salah. And I feel like because of that, they don't really have as strong of a squad as a whole as I do. And for me, all I think I need to focus on is just to nail captaincy and try to pick up 6 points week in and week out, and just trust the differentials that I went for. Players like Luis Diaz and Trent and Son and Madison, Watkins, Trippier, like Cash. These are solid FPL picks. I back every single one of them. I think the combination of Alvarez and Salah is better than Darwin and Haaland. And I know that there's fear about, going against Haaland, but I just think you can't really predict who's going to start for Liverpool. So going for Mo Salah is very important. And then I think covering up Haaland by having Alvarez in the team is just the way that I think about it. I think he's KDB priced at 6.8. So that's how I'm thinking about my team. So again, the key to this phase of FPL for me is just about focusing on captaincy. And when I look at my squad and I see 3 Spurs players, it really just dents in my willingness to go and captain a Spurs player. I mean, think about what happened last game, where sometimes in FPL, games are just so game state dependent, where I honestly feel like Spurs could have scored 3 or 4 goals, but because they didn't get that early goal, it kind of hampered what they could have done by the time the game ended. And of course, the red card changed the game, but it's one of those moments where I would have been so annoyed to have Son as a captain. And I wildcarded because I knew I wanted to captain Mo Salah. I just trust him. Now, the issue is that in my team, I have 3 Spurs mids, and that's why I don't really want to captain Son, right? So number 1, I have 3 mids, so I already have enough exposure. Number 2, I think Son is a minutes risk, and because he's carrying that knock, you can even see it when he went to go play during international break. He was limping off at halftime, and of course he comes back on and gets the goal, wins the game for the team. But it's one of those things where that doubt and having him in my team is already enough risk, in my opinion. I feel like there's already some people that don't own him. Now, captaining somebody with that type of risk, that's too much. It's too much risk in my opinion. And so because of that, I think Son captaincy is off the table. So for me this week, I think the 2 key captains that I'm debating between are Salah, who has Everton at home, and Trippier, who has Crystal Palace at home. Now, I just think it's very simple. Like whenever there's a 50-50 decision, whenever it's between Son and Salah, I'll always go for Salah. I trust Salah over Son. And I think over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, Salah was the better FPL pick. Over the course of the season, I think Salah's the better FPL pick. Like Salah's more consistent. Liverpool are a more attacking team. I just trust Mo Salah. So that's why I'm alright being dismissive in terms of not captaining Son. Now, when it comes to this week, it's not really about Son. Like, going against Trippier is going to be very, very difficult. And I feel like just analyzing the two is going to be the key to me getting a green arrow this week, because I'm not really planning to make a transfer. I do feel like rolling my transfer is going to be great. I think my squad looks very strong. So let me just give you the reasons about why I'm leaning to captain Trips or to captain Mo. So let's jump right into analyzing Kieran Trippier. Now, Newcastle over the past 4 games have played the opponents of Brentford, Sheffield, Burnley, and a West Ham. And I feel like Crystal Palace is equal to the strength of the average of Newcastle's last 4 opponents. So if we look at the expected goals conceded from Newcastle, it was 1.1, 0.75, 0.75, and 0.6. And in these 4 games, they still went out there and kept 3 clean sheets. Newcastle are very, very solid defensively. You can even see it from statistically and also from the eye test. Like, they're just so well run. And I feel like they work hard for one another. They're not just egomaniacs and they're only looking out for themselves. You can really see that if somebody gets beat on a one-on-one defensively, other players will rotate over. And I feel like it's really hard to beat Newcastle because they just have so many advantages. I mean, think about Dan Burn at the left back position. He's so tall, he's so strong, it's hard to beat him one-on-one. And even if you do and you can burn him for pace, Sven Botman is there. Speaking of Sven Botman, he was injured, but it does seem like he is coming back to play after international break. That's what the early news is saying, that he is fit, but I'm not 100% on that, so don't hold me to it. I'm kind of assuming that Botman is going to be back and Newcastle will be at full strength from a defensive perspective. In fact, over the last 4 games, Newcastle are the 3rd best team in terms of expected goals conceded. So they're very, very solid. Now, the interesting thing is that it's not just the defenders that you can trust. You can genuinely trust the keeper. That's one of the most important factors. That's one of the reasons I'll never, ever captain a Man City defender, because, I trust Ruben Diaz. I trust Kyle Walker. I trust Gvardiol if he's starting. I just don't trust Ederson. Like, I really just don't rate him as a player. He just concedes way too many goals. It's like 2 shots on target and it's like 1 goal conceded, like typical Ederson. But with Pope, he's probably the 2nd best goalie in the league. Like, I think only behind Alisson Becker. Like, Pope is insane. He makes world-class saves, and he's one of the reasons that Burnley stayed in the Premier League for as long as they did. So I do trust Newcastle from a defensive perspective. Now, given the statistics, to me, looking at their XGC, it's an average of 0.8 per 90 over the past 4 matches. So for me, I'm thinking that their clean sheet percentage should be around, maybe 20 to 25%. Just given the actuals. Now, I'm looking at what the bet makers have, and the clean sheet odds of Newcastle this week in the market is 47%. So if we average out that 20 to 25% that they had in the last 4 games, with this 47% predicted for a clean sheet percentage at home, I want to be conservative and just assume that they have a 35% chance of a clean sheet. Moving on, we really just have to address Trippier's attacking potential. So over the past 4 games, he has an XGI of 2.0. That's very, very solid, especially for a defender. That matches a lot of midfielders, to be honest with you. He's on all the set pieces, all the corners. He's just incredible. And this isn't just in the Premier League. In the Champions League, he went out there and got an assist. I think they kept a clean sheet in one of the games as well. He's very solid. And putting up an XGI of 0.5 means that he probably has a 50% chance of an attacking return. So if I add the 50% chance of an attacking return with a 35% chance of a clean sheet, we get to 85% chance of a return. Now, I just want to mention, one of the biggest reasons why I am leaning towards Trippier over Salah is that when Newcastle played Crystal Palace, they played 3 times last season, and all of the games ended 0-0. They played 2 times in the league and 1 time in the FA Cup. The 2 times they played in the league, Crystal Palace, these are like the statistics from the EPL games, and Crystal Palace only created 0.3 XG and 0.9 XG. So that's an average XG of around 0.6 per match. And that's sort of in line with my 35% clean sheet percentage. So I feel like trusting that 85% chance of a return, I feel like that's reliable. And whenever Newcastle keep a clean sheet, Trippier isn't just going to end with 6 points. He's going to end with 8, sometimes even 9, because he just creates so many chances and he's a bonus points monster. So my instinct is leading me towards Trippier. However, it's really hard to go against the king himself. He has been the most consistent player in FPL, and I think he actually has more points than Erling Haaland this season. It's actually mad. Mo Salah's consistency dates back to last season, where he has a goal or an assist in 14 games in a row. That's incredible. Like, Mo Salah is genuinely incredible. Like, I can't even believe that he's only 40% effective ownership. Like, the remaining 60% of you are absolutely mad to go without him during this fixture run. I just think it's just insane. Like, I genuinely think he is at least the 1st or 2nd best captaincy option for most people. And I think a lot of people don't even own him. Now, I know that sounds mad because I feel like most people, whenever in doubt, they'll just captain Haaland. So I'm saying that, you're crazy for going out without Mo Salah, and I guess I'm crazy for going out without Haaland, and I guess we'll see who wins that battle. But the way that I'm seeing it is that Mo Salah in his first 8 EPL games this season has an XGI of 8.0. That's an average XGI per 90 of 1.0. So he's been very consistent, and obviously he's getting more XGI in the easier games and less XGI in the harder games, and that's normal. Now, Mo Salah's XGI of 1.0 in previous seasons would have been 0.7 or 0.8 of an XG and 0.2 of an XA. Now, this season, it's much more balanced. If he has an XGI of 1.0, he'll have 0.5 for XG and 0.5 for XA. Does that mean that he's less of a goal threat and that'll mean to less points? I don't think so. Because he's more creative, it leads to him being higher in the bonus. And I just feel like Mo Salah as an FPL asset is just as deadly this season as he was in previous seasons. So I'm not going to be doubting the Egyptian King anytime soon. The question for me is, can I trust Liverpool attack? And the answer to that is absolutely. They are tied for first in terms of XG per 90, and the fixtures haven't even been that strong. They've played Spurs, Brighton, Newcastle, and Aston Villa, all very solid teams, and they're still tied for first per 90. That should tell you all you need to know. Like, Liverpool are incredible, and I feel like it's all on the back of their midfield reinvigoration. There's just so much more creativity this season. Imagine replacing Henderson and Fabinho with McAllister and Szoboszlai. Like, the creativity is off the charts. I don't have a breakdown of statistics about that, but if you watch the games, you can just tell. Like, Liverpool are just so much more creative, and I just feel like that just should lead to more chances for Mo Salah. And I think last season he went on a streak of not getting shots on target for like 3 or 4 games in a row. There's no way in hell that's going to happen again this season. And on top of that, Salah is just so talismanic for Liverpool. And so far this season, Liverpool have scored 18 goals, and Salah has been involved in 9 of them. That's a 50% goal involvement rate. Now, obviously, that is ridiculously high, and you're expecting that to come down. Now, even if that percentage comes down, I think Liverpool will score more goals in the easier fixtures over this fixture run. So even if the goal involvement goes down, I still think his number of goal involvements in the next 8 games will be at least as much as it was in the previous 8 games. So I think the ceiling for Mo Salah is really, really high. Now, if I take a step back and I just ask myself, like, what do I think is the best thing? It's like Liverpool are playing really strong, but what about their opponent? For me, that's the crux of the issue. Not only do they have the early kickoff, but Everton have been very solid defensively. In fact, when we look at their expected goals conceded relative to other teams in the league, they're in the top half. Now, you have to caveat that with they had very, very good fixtures. There's a reason why Jordan Pickford was an FPL pick. Because if we look at their fixtures, they played against Bournemouth, Luton, Sheffield, Wolves, and Fulham. Those are great fixtures. So that's obviously skewing Everton to become a very strong defense, even though they may not be. So this is why I'm so torn. Like, I'm genuinely so torn. Like, it's hard to have the king in your team, have him as a differential, and genuinely not back him. Like, it's hard. But then when I think about it, I'm going into the early kickoff. And, most people don't even have any Liverpool players in their team. But I'm going to have Trent Alexander-Arnold. I'm going to have Luis Diaz. And I'm going to have Salah. Now, the issue here is that Luis Diaz may not even start because, he's playing in Colombia during international break and he's going to be flying back. And to me, if I'm Klopp, I'm definitely going to start Diego Jota and Mo Salah in that game. And I think that third spot is up for grabs, whether he has the trust in Darwin Núñez or he trusts Luis Diaz to start. I feel like he will trust Luis Diaz. I feel like he's just Klopp's favorite, to be honest with you. Just looking at the amount of minutes he started every single game in the Premier League, apart from last time when there was an international break, he didn't start that first game. Now, the issue here is that Gakpo is injured. Will he force Gakpo to start? I just feel like that's unlikely given the injury. It looks pretty bad when it happened. It was a knee injury. It wasn't like an ankle. So, of course, you want to be more precautious from that perspective. So I feel like there is a chance that Diaz starts. Now, we will get the league, so we will get the team news about who's starting, but I don't want that to impact my captaincy decision. I already have enough exposure, and I know I should be looking at captaincy in isolation. I know I should be looking at it and think to myself, like, listen, would you rather have 2 Mo Salahs in your team, or would you rather have 2 Kieran Trippiers in your team? And to me, it's very hard, and it's a very 50-50 decision, and honestly, I went and I just flipped a coin. And when the coin was in the air, I genuinely just really wanted to land heads because I really wanted Kieran Trippier to be the answer. I think that told me all I needed to know. Like, I love Mo, and I think I could rue to regret this decision, but I'm going to be backing Kieran Trippier. I absolutely love you. You've been so consistent over the past 4 games. I'm really hoping you can do it again one more time. Please, Kieran, I need you big time this time. And honestly, there's a couple factors with Mo. It's the early kickoff. If there's ever a chance of an early sub, it's going to be in this week. It's a Merseyside derby. It's a big match. I'm sure that Liverpool is going to be up for it. And I just feel like these games are not really high scoring. Like, whenever I think about the last 3 or 4 seasons, I don't really recall like a 3 or 4 nothing. I more so recall, some 0-0, some 1-0 wins. Like, I'm definitely expecting Liverpool to win. I'm just not sure how many goals they're going to score. So it's one of those situations where I just have to back my gut. Elise is injured. Ebriche Eze is injured. I don't know where Crystal Palace's creativity is going to be coming from. And when I watched Crystal Palace play Nottingham Forest in game week 8, I just felt like they would bring the ball forward and they didn't really have somebody to beat their defender one-on-one or break the defense down, so they just would recycle the ball and then recycle the ball and recycle the ball. And I'm like, wow, like Crystal Palace, they really can't do anything. Like, I feel like if anybody has Kieran Trippier in their team, they feel really confident about getting a return. I mean, he's got one for the last 4 weeks in a row. So why not just trust him and captain him? So that's where I am right now. I know it sounds mad, but I just feel like I have to back my gut. Like, that's what FPL is all about. Sometimes I can be overconfident. Like, so many things have broken my way this season. Going against Haaland, bringing in Salah, I got that instant gratification, and I'm feeling like I'm on top of the world, and I feel like I'm him. Like, that's the vibe that I have right now. Captain Kieran Trippier, captaining a defender, this could end up in shambles. Like, Trippier could get a red card. I could end on a -1 and captaining it. Like, I've seen it before with Cancelo. It's not out of the realms of possibility, but I just trust him. I trust the pick. I trust the team. And I'm going to be backing Kieran Trippier this week. Now, moving on to the rest of my squad. We've got, starting in my keeper position, we've got Turner, who plays Luton at home. I feel like that's a locked-in clean sheet. Nottingham Forest are a top half defense. Luton have been awful. In fact, if I had the opportunity for a 1-week punt, it would either be Diego Jota this week or Morgan Gibbs-White. I think both of them are going to absolutely smash it this week. So if you are looking for a transfer to bring in for 1 week, that's where I would go. Moving on, we've got Trent Alexander-Arnold. This is my guy. Listen, I've backed against Erling Haaland, and one of the keys is actually Trent. Now, I'm a little bit disappointed to see that Robertson is out. That probably means Liverpool won't be as strong from a defensive perspective, but I don't think that nails Tsimikas in the team. I think there's a chance that Liverpool will just play 3 center backs, like, because they are moving Trent into midfield anyways. So what if they just start Joe Gomez? What if they just start Joel Matip alongside Konate and Van Dijk? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, so I would just avoid Tsimikas. That's just what I think. Obviously, I'm biased. Like, the reason why I went with this draft is because I just trust Trent. And if I had Robertson, I would just probably move to Van Dijk. That's what I would do. I feel like it's just safer to take the expected minutes rather than take the 4.0 player that could be a gift but is a risk to not start. And what if they just are benched in the game that you need them? So I don't know. For me, I really value expected minutes, and I think that's why I've just done so well this season. I mean, this is the smallest decision, but if I just review how I did last week, if I went for Richarlison, who was probably the better pick and the more risky pick, but he did get a lot of chances, but look, he was subbed off early, and he ended up with a 1-pointer. Just picking expected minutes gained me an extra 2 points by going to Kulusevski. It's one of those things where I think expected minutes genuinely does matter. So yeah, that's why I wouldn't really back going to Tsimikas. Now, moving on to Matty Cash, I just think he's the best defender in the game right now from a value perspective. Overall, the fixtures for Aston Villa are very strong after this week. The West Ham fixture isn't that great, but it's a 50-50 decision between Cash and White. Now, White is playing for a stronger defense. I trust Arsenal more than I trust Aston Villa defensively, but Cash has more attacking upside than Ben White. So to me, it's a 50-50 decision. However, I would lean towards Cash because he's at home. Moving on to my midfield, I'm backing Spurs. I really hope Spurs can go out there and absolutely smash it this week against Fulham at home. Come on, boys. You've been so great this year. You're top of the table. Show me why you're top of the table, And now it's I'm backing the early kickoff. I've got Salah, I've got Diaz, I've got Trent. I'm really hoping that Diaz actually starts. If he doesn't, I still feel confident enough for him to get a return. Even if he doesn't get a return off the bench, I feel like he can get one in the next game against Nottingham Forest or in the next game against Luton. And if not, he'll get one against Fulham or against Sheffield. I really back Luis Diaz. I don't think that, because if, let's say he's benched this week, I don't think he's going to be benched for every single week because he's now going to get starts in the Europa League. I don't think Klopp is like that. I think Klopp genuinely has a favored front three of Luis Diaz, Darwin Núñez, and Mo Salah. And I think by the time it rolls around to next week, expect that front three to start. Moving on, I've got Julian Alvarez, who's my cover of Erling Haaland. I did consider him for captaincy for about like 30 seconds and then decided against it. And then we've got Ollie Watkins, who actually has more points than Haaland this season. Can you believe it? It's unreal. But Watkins, you have wonderful fixtures coming up, and I don't really expect you to do too much, but you've just ticked along every single game, so why not just continue doing it, my guy? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. I just wanted to give you a quick thank you. Like the subscriber growth on the channel, like just responding and interacting with different people in the community. It's been wonderful so far. Now, if you're ever looking for a 50-50 decision and you know you're in a time crunch, just drop me a DM on Twitter. Like that is my main source of that's my main outlet. YouTube is just much more work because I have to film the video, edit it, do the thumbnail, do the timestamps. Like it just takes so much more effort. But if you're looking for a quick response on a question, just DM me on Twitter. I love FPL. If I have time, I'll reply to it. So anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for supporting the channel. And if I provided some value to you, please drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.